Hi, this is Stacia, and we're going to take a look at a line that comes out of the Smith-Morra Gambit, where Black chooses to decline the gambit with this move D3. And this is called the push variation, or sometimes the advance variation against the Smith-Morra Gambit. So let's have a look, starting with how do we get this position? Okay, well, this comes out of the move E4, C5, which is the Sicilian defense. And now, normally white will play knight f3, but here we choose an interesting move, d4. So this is the Smith-Morra Gambit, and black will take the pawn in our main line. And then white plays c3, so offering a pawn. And if black takes this, this would be the Smith-Morra accepted. And white is down a pawn, but ahead in development with a lot of attacking chances and trickery. But as a Smith-Morra player myself, I have a harder time with the declined lines, which is the reason I'm creating this video and looking at this. So to start out, we are going to look at D3, which I faced in a recent game and wasn't familiar with. But that's just one way this can be declined. The main move is actually knight f6. And after knight f6, white plays e5. Black plays knight d5. And this is actually a transposition into the Alpine Sicilian, also known as the c3 Sicilian. So that's the main decline line that you'll see. Another one is g6. That also will transpose into an Alpine. And there's also d5 called the Scandi formation. Pretty interesting move. And there's actually a few other moves, but we're going to focus on d3. Like queen a5 is a move. There's also d6 and e6. Don't take your own pawn horizontally. Although I'm not a fan of these moves. I think they give white a nice advantage after c takes d4. But queen a5 is also interesting, which stops c takes d4, and that's called the wing formation. Okay, but let's get into our main line. So the move d3. So this is intended to sort of disrupt white's development scheme. Okay, we would love to have our knight on c3, and black is not allowing that by playing the move d3 themselves. Notice I cannot play c takes d4 anymore. And that would be very desirable because I would have the pawn duo and the knight could come to c3 and I'd be very happy. So this is a disruptive move, even though it seems to just give this pawn away. It looks like white can take back a couple ways, like with the bishop or with the queen. I don't think the queen is a good move. I checked the database and there are no master games where queen takes pawn. Probably because, white needs to develop their king side. So this assists us in castling, and queen d3 would not. So that would also force the bishop to e2, which might not be the best square for the bishop. So this is a natural move, and this is the main line. Now black in the main line plays the most natural move in the world. This is the 100% book move. Knight to c6, developing. And now white plays what, to my eye, is a bit of an unusual move. And it's the move c4. Now, this is not, I'm showing this as the 100% book move, but this is not required. There are other moves here. So knight f3 is a move. And yeah, even the crazy move f4 is an option. I've seen there are quite a few master games where f4 is played. And you might get something like d5, e5, g6. And yeah, I don't know what's happening here, but this is if you're looking to shake things up, this might be an option. But I actually do like the move c4, or I like knight f3 followed by c4. And the idea is just to make our development more harmonious. We're adopting a Maroczy bind pawn structure. Okay, we've got this nice bind on the d5 square. That's why it's called the Maroczy bind. And now our development scheme is very, very easy. So the knight will come to c3 now. We'll have nice control over this point. We are giving up this square, I guess, but it's totally fine to play this way. You know, this knight's going to come here. We're going to castle kingside. I think the only downside is that sometimes the bishop does belong on e2 in these lines. But I also think it's totally fine here. As we'll see, the bishop has a role to play on d3. Okay, so let's continue. After c4, I don't have any book moves in my SCID database, but I went on chess.com and looked at the main moves in the master database. And the main move I saw was g6. So this makes a lot of sense. This bishop is going to come to g7, and with the pawn on c4, it applies pressure down the diagonal. So makes a lot of sense to me. And now I think the next few moves are very natural and easy to remember. So like white's going to play knight f3. Looks totally normal. We want a castle soon. Black's going to play bishop g7 as planned. Castle. And now black plays d6. Just want to keep an eye on this e5 push. Also, this opens up the bishop, which, you know, I think ideally this bishop wants to come to g5. And now knight c3 as planned. Yeah, and keep in mind here that, you know, during my game in this line, I was kind of worried about bishop takes c3. It just looks to me like this pawn structure is pretty messed up. And it, you know, it does say though we have the bishop here. We still have this bind on d5, and now the dark squares are a bit weak. This bishop is not a good bishop, a good piece for black. I guess bishop here is an option now. But yeah, we could even play like c5 here. And that trades off the double pawn. So that's an option. And then maybe h3. And yeah, so you can actually go into this willingly, although I personally would want to study this more before I allow it. Well, then again, if the masters and the computer both say this is fine, then I think, you know, it's probably okay to trust that and allow and play knight c3. So knight c3, and this is just a risky move for black to play this way. So instead, black plays like this in the main line, knight f6. Natural developing move, black wants to play castle queenside. Kind of eyes this pawn, kind of eyes the g4 square. So in the event of bishop e3, there is knight g4. Okay. And now here's a move that I'm actually really interested in. So I want to mention that in a lot of John Bartholomew's videos, he's basically my hero, by the way, if you didn't know that. He mentions how moving rook pawns is often just a waste of time, and that a lot of lower rated players just do that without thought and end up in a lot of trouble. And I totally agree with that. But here we have a situation where h3 is actually a good move. Both the master games and the computer recommend h3. And the reason is bishop g5 is coming. or g4, sorry. And also knight g4 is also an option. So the way I like to remember that this is a good move is that I like to look at what squares this bishop has. Okay, b6 and bishop b7 is not really a good option. It would kind of be biting on granite. This d5 square is controlled by white pretty heavily, and the c-pawn's in the way. This is also a slow plan that weakens the c6 square. So the bishop's not coming this way, okay? And if you look at the squares on this diagonal, not a lot of good options, right? So g4 is really a good option, and black might even want to exchange off the bishop because it doesn't have great prospects. But the f5 square is not available. e6 is not desirable because it's blocking the e-pawn. I mean, it's possible, but not desirable. And d7 is just a little bit passive, but it is playable probably. So h3 is stopping bishop g4 and also this knight g4 idea, so that bishop e3 is more comfortable. So yeah, multiple reasons to play h3, and I think when that's the case, that it should be played. But if there's no concrete reason to play this move, then you should develop or start your middle game plan. All right, so in this position, black castles, completely natural move. And now I always like to go through the first 10 moves of the opening, and we're almost there. That finishes move 9. And now move 10, I would be considering bishop g5 or bishop e3 here, just to complete development. And indeed, the main move is bishop e3. Bishop g5 is also okay. I think black could play h6 here. And then we would just go e3 now. And, here, maybe black could consider something like this, and we could go queen d2, hitting the pawn. But then I would expect something like king h7, but also g5 is okay here. It's okay to play like this. So pretty interesting. But bishop e3 is the main move here, so not going into that. And now the main move for black is a little surprising to me, but makes a lot of sense. So I'd be thinking about this bishop still. But the main move for black is actually knight d7, so beginning their middle game plan. This kind of hints that they may play f5 at some point. This is a typical pawn break in this pawn structure, so challenging this pawn. But the main move, or the main idea behind this, is to cement the knight on c5. And so I'll kind of show, this is move 10, and the main move for white is queen d2. Also a middle game idea. The idea being this typical idea to remove the bishop, to trade off the dark square bishop, which is a really good piece for black. So that trade will benefit white. So yeah, from here, knight c5 would be the idea, and yeah, it is tempting to move the bishop. So bishop c2 is an idea, but the main move is rook ac1. And now black could actually play a5. So just stopping this. Now, I don't know that black could always take the bishop pair here. It's tempting, but this is not a happy bishop for white. So it's like, do you really want to trade your second best piece? This is the best piece. But do you really want to trade your second best piece for this bishop, which is kind of acting like a pawn? So I would leave the tension there. And after a5, though, one of the moves for white is bishop b1. That's personally one of my favorite moves, so I wanted to show that. I love when the bishop is tucked away, and that was the point behind rook ac1, is now we can tuck the bishop back here. Has a lot of scope here. It's defending our a pawn, and yeah, this is totally fine to have the bishop here. And so it's a game from here. You know, we are going to try to get this. Wow, I didn't realize this bishop was drunk, sorry. But the main plan I saw for white is they're going to play bishop h6. And then I do like ideas with like f4 and e5 breaks and maybe rook to the center, knight d5. A lot of ideas to play for. So I'd like to go through the line one last time so we can, you know, quickly go through and cement this in our minds. I'm going to turn off the engine now. So e4, c5, and d4, the Smith-Morra Gambit. They take c3, and we're looking at the decline line, the second most popular move, or I'm sorry, third most popular, because taking is most popular, d3. We'll take with the bishop, not the queen, and now knight c6, and c4. Strange move, but we're freeing up this square for the knight and creating a Maroczy bind pawn structure. Black plays g6, looking to take control of this nice diagonal for their bishop, and now knight f3. Standard development, bishop g7 as planned, and castles. So both sides are developing rapidly. d6, opening the bishop. Knight c3, great square for the knight, and knight f6, completing development. h3, so stopping knight g4 and bishop g4. And now castles. And then move 10 for white is bishop e3. Notice there is no knight g4 now. And then the interesting and good move by black, knight d7, looking to put the knight on c5. So that completes our intro to this line, the Smith-Morra Gambit Declined push variation. I hope you learned something from the video, as I did, and have a great day. Thank you. Bye.